So the first thing in here, so this one shot where he kind of leans back into the reds. If we turned off all the lights in the space, and if you start at the beginning of this scene, 2 spotlights come on her on the piano, one on him smoking next to the piano as it begins. We used LEDs because we could really control color and that kind of thing. There are these BMFL, follow spot LTs.
That's what you use for the spotlights?
Yeah. And so we'd put like a handful of these in there, but also the spotlight that's lighting him from the front is just a Super Trooper follow spot, the same as we used in like Murray Franklin show, old school Super Trooper. The ones that were in the ceiling like that's basically being represented here, that one would be one of these sort of Robies, and even some of the stuff back in the distance, you know, here and here. But when he's then like, we turn off other people at some point and just give him a spotlight, those would be the Super Troopers. And then in the background here, one of the things here was what we wanted to do. There's some practicals on the wall, like these 2 right ones here are some practicals built into the set, basically shooting over the crowd in the foreground. It's basically a 3-wall set.
Right.
And one wall has some stuff, but it's basically just blackout, velvet blackout. So everything just goes into blackness.
And velvet's particular. You chose velvet for a particular reason?
Velvet is non-reflective. If we did that, let's say with Duvetine, you would see it.
I see.
Yeah. So the velvet just takes out any reflection. So if you want to like shoot somebody in a black void, velvet will do it much better. And so in here, anywhere we needed black that wasn't seen, you know, just to extend the sense of void or the set, we would use velvet. Even these par trees down here, you know, in the background here, just like parkan trees, right? And they were a combination of a couple LED parkans and old school parkans with gels. I think in that par tree, because we knew we'd be photographing them and we wanted their sort of decay to feel real, the ones that were photographed, we wanted to be old school parkans that we just put different colored gels. When we shot down the side, like this shot sees, that those things also were just on like a real-time dimmer. Everything's real time. So we're calling out cues, but also our dimmer board operator or Rafi to the music is like pushing those parkans. So if you see it in the movie, you'll see they're not programmed to the song. Everything we wanted full flexibility. So when we were in a different angle, depending on what we were seeing, we could then flash it, right? And so it was all done in real time. So these little par trees that were on the sides, and then the practicals, which are over here on the right, those practicals are just part of the set dressing. We would preset spotlights. So let's say we had 2 Super Troopers at the front that were hand operated. That was one for Gaga, one for Joaquin. Then we had these other spotlights that they could be backlit spotlights that we would turn on depending on where the camera was and depending on where we were in the song. And so what you see here is a bunch of those on doing different things.
And then when you would flip the camera on the other side, you turn those off and then backlit from behind.
That's exactly right. And instead of like, give us an hour, we'll turn the set around, we pre-placed everything so that there was never an hour. And also it meant I could put another camera on that side and sometimes the front light looked good, or that front light wasn't great and maybe they'd use it, maybe they wouldn't. But when we used the backlight on the other shot, this side's camera front light looked shitty, but the other camera now looked good. So we could, I mean, this kind of scene we shot with 3 cameras. One was on a 45-foot Scorpio with a matrix head. The other one was on a dolly track going across the middle. And then the third camera was usually on a longer lens, a zoom, that could pick off like the trumpet player and you know, and a lot of little pieces. The reason why we just would bring in a third camera and is because we didn't want to sort of now go, let's shoot the band, you know? Sometimes we would do that because we would be like just still waiting for makeup, let's say, and we go, okay, we have an opportunity, we could shoot one shot of the trumpet. But then it always felt so specific. And we wanted everything to feel like it was sort of captured in real time, like a live performance. And so it was better to do it when other things were happening with the A and B camera. And so it was nicer to try to find those moments in real time because they had that kind of verisimilitude and capture that we wanted. All right, so like these prison movies, you know, you think about a movie like Sullivan's Travels or something, right? Which is a cool movie. You know, or Shawshank, or I don't know if Shawshank does it. I think Green Mile does it. There's like, it's a bit of a trope in prison movies that they get, you know, a night to watch movies. And so in this, because it's the B ward, which is like not, aggressive criminals. These are more just people who are, are psychologically, sort of damaged, but they're not, dangerous to society. They get a movie night that he's invited into. So it's a bit of like their first date. They've met, they've sort of talked in the hallway. This is now like going to a movie night, right? Like it's a movie date. And so for me, this was always wanted to be a very magical moment. And one thing just from a logistical standpoint was in early prep, there's just, you go into technical things like, okay, they brought in a 16 millimeter projector. Todd didn't want it to be 35. It's too ridiculous. It's too big. So they would have had a 16 millimeter print of The Bandwagon, which is the movie that's playing on the screen. And they've rolled it in on a cart like you would in a high school or something. And that's what they're showing these inmates on like a little pull down screen. So very simple. So we got a 16 millimeter print of The Bandwagon, and then we tested that on 16. And what we realized really early on is, yeah, it worked and it looked okay, but it wasn't super vibrant as an image.
Right.
And the reset time to like roll it back and also to find a specific, let's say, moment in the song to start on, any of those kind of logistics became like very quickly we realized that's going to take too much time. But we wanted to see the projector with film around it. So basically we created a reel-to-reel that was faked. So it looked like 16 was rolling through that projector. And then we hid a digital projector with Bandwagon on it that we treated because we had already shot some footage and tests of the 16 millimeter print. So we saw how much gate weave there was. Sure. We saw a couple scratches and dirt. So we used that as a guide, took like a digital print of Bandwagon and then treated it to look that way. And then we basically took a mirror, hid the projector in that little cart, cut a hole in it, cut a hole in the projector, shot it through a mirror, and so that could come out the front. So you could see the projector, like it's the opening shot of the scene as you go past it. So you could see the reel-to-reel with 16, but there's a hidden digital print inside of it, and a digital projector. So that we had the control, we had control brightness, we could make it a bit more of a vibrant image, because for like a big wide shot, there's not a lot left to be, like we want that projected image to basically be bouncing back on the actors, to be the light that they're seeing. Now we hid above them really, really, really simple, almost like asteratubes that were like low level that could mimic it, and they were just off the frame line to kind of enhance the sort of push back from the screen.
Push to come from the screen.
Yeah. And so that way that provided it for like the wide shot. Okay. So when we were testing that projector, we thought at a point that we would like basically take the same frame that you see here, but imagine the projector we were shooting from behind the screen that was hanging in the ceiling. So once we tested the projector, I took the camera and I was rolling it around on the dolly, and the two stand-ins were standing there. And as we rolled it around, we before we put this magic cloth that we were going to test for the thing, the two actors just fell into this like atmospheric smoke of just the projector light, and it bloomed out like this kind of magical thing, and the way it flared. And I was like, oh, took a still
like a
happy accident that I was like, yeah, we're going to do that for sure.
Love that.
So then that became the foundation for this moment in the movie. So what we're doing here is it's the real projector, the digital projector. And we played with like, can that image be black and white? Because this color, this sort of blue that's coming out here, this cyan, that's just, 5600 on the projector. But we could play with that projector and control it a little bit. We looked at it with black and white. We looked at it like with the 16 millimeter projector. This was still the best result of it. And then, of course, she's lit the whole piano back here on fire. I'll do it with black, maybe. This whole piano has been lit on fire. And in a practical sense, then you go into like, okay, how do we do that?
Right.
Well, first you have to like make sure that entire set wall can't go up in flames. Now, this
legitimately,
yeah. And at some point, so there's a couple elements going on here. One, even in the shot where she throws the matches into the thing, we have a flame bar down there that can come up. So that's just a gas flame bar, And then there's a gas flame bar behind it. There's a gas flame bar on the floor. There's like probably 4 gas flame bars there. So that for a shot like this, we have real flames coming
practical
up.
Flames.
Practical flames,
Right.
which is the best thing for the lighting, best thing for all of that. And then they've enhanced it by one, painting over the flame bars that you see, but also painting on top of it with flames. But instead of just painting it, we saved a section of this wall, a little bigger than what you see here, and we actually lit it on fire outside later as an element.
Oh, wow.
Right.
And so, then brought it in post?
Yeah. And then that way, it wasn't like they were just creating paint, like fire. We actually took this, went outside, took that set wall. You couldn't do it inside because it would be like so much smoke that you couldn't do it on the stages because then you'd have to clear the stages. Sure. It's like obviously a hazardous material. And so then they were able to use the real set, real flames in the real space, real kind of interaction with the wall.
Was that a decision between you, Todd, and the VFX? Like, how did you want to why did you decide to do that rather than strictly just VFX?
VFX was like, I'd rather just light the set wall on fire than just
VFX.
Total VFX, a lot of that. And even when they escape and they're sort of running away in this sort of flashing emergency lights, and it's in the trailer, and it's like they're holding hands, and in the background, it's basically this room is the background now, and it's now really engulfed in flames. For that, on set, we put some flame bars, but we also took some it was that kind of fabric that you can roll out that has LEDs on them, and you could basically pixel map to it.
Sure.
But they were far enough away on the Area 65 that they went out of focus. It looked like fire, but it didn't look like any fire you could use. But it definitely looked enough like fire that because we didn't want to put blue screen back there. So we wanted something that
felt real,
was interacting with the rest of the environment, like the hallway. And so in that shot, they did a similar thing, which is they then took that section of the wall and that hallway, and they took it outside and they lit it on fire as well. So that way, on both these sort of critical shots where we were adding fire later, we did that. And then when they escape, which is right after this scene, they go outside and they go to like their Arkham exterior, they hide behind a car, and then they go and dance, and then they go to the gates. That scene, we hid these same kind of we hid like a bunch of vortexes and other things like that put a fire effect on them out the windows, and it was along with other flame bars, and then they enhanced that. Now, for that, they didn't light that building on fire as an example, but if they could have, they would have. Yeah.
So what I find interesting here is because you did the test and you found that this particular angle backlit by the projector gives this look, and because the final image has this color contrast, you had to put the piano in that specific spot. So when it lit on fire, the right side of the frame is orange and the left side is blue. Was that a conscious, was that your decision, or is that a combination of multiple people to put it back in that spot?
The thing was the shot that was found by accident was just on an empty stage. So I knew that had this sort of interesting cyan. It was more a function of I love the color contrast, and it speaks to this emotional sort of connection between them of the warmth of her and the coolness of him, and and that kind of larger thing which exists. When he first sees her, she's in warm light, and he's still in the blue light of the windows from the rain. So that's a consistent part of it, but it's also a functional thing of the place is on fire.
Exactly.
Right. So putting the camera there allowed it. If you put the camera on the other side, it's a shot that precedes this, none of that exists.
Right.
So I knew that at least this sort of monochromatic aspect of what we tested was now going to have this really beautiful interaction of warm light. But yeah, a lot of it comes from the source of the script and all these other things. Amazing. But of course, I love that this image has those two colors in it. And this is the 58 mil, which was a real hero lens of ours, and it's pushing in on a crane, and just slowly pushing in. And so the combination of them kissing and blocking that projection light, along with the way that the camera can sort of also chase that. So it had the ability to slide a tiny bit left or right to enhance or hide the flare if it was too much.
Right. So right here you see the flare a little bit.
Yeah, and if you see it in real time and you actually see the shot, you'll see that this section here, I'll redraw it in there, where really the projector is in the center.
Right.
It gets, based on how they come together, kiss, and then separate, that also, but it's always nice to give yourself a little control over it as well. So if it's too much, and it's too early, you can slide a little right and hide it, and then you can bring it. So I don't never want the actors to feel like
limited in their mark.
Don't stand here. If you have to stand here to make it perfect. Like if they miss the mark, because we never just did this shot by itself.
Sure.
It happened in real time of them standing up. Like it's not like it's shot. You could imagine just go stand on these marks and we're going to just shoot this shot. No, the shot was part of a larger shot that just continued through here. Right. And so if they missed the mark, we needed to have some flexibility to make sure it still had our intention as well.
Amazing.